So last week there was a walkout, a school walkout I don't know what they were trying to do exactly, but to bring attention to gun violence in schools or stop gun violence in schools. I'm not quite sure. I could really only find one article on it, and that was out of LA. SoCal students join nationwide walkout against gun violence in schools. This is out of Burbank. Students in Southern California joined their peers across the country on Friday, walking out of the classroom to protest gun violence and call for stricter gun control measures. This, of course, is, like I said, it's on Eyewitness News, Channel 7, ABC out of LA. And there wasn't a whole lot. The walkouts following the shooting in Minneapolis Catholic school last week, which left 2 students dead and 21 others injured. Eyewitness News joined the John Burroughs High School, et cetera, et cetera. So this was really the only coverage I could find on the quote-unquote walkout this time around. But if you just did a little Google search on school walkout gun violence or something along those lines, you would see that they do this about every year. It's not a legit thing, and they actually reached out to me here in San Diego. There was some in San Diego. There was a little bit throughout the country. I think mostly in California. But again, this isn't legit. They want you to believe that a couple of students got together and they just couldn't handle it anymore, and so they stood up for what they believed in, and they decided to just walk out of school. Because of their strong beliefs. None of that's reality. This is all staged. In fact, it's more than staged. It's encouraged by staff. I mean, think back to when you were in school. What if you just up and walked out of school and encouraged others to do the same for any reason other than like a fire inside the school? What would happen to you? So their ability to just up and walk out and leave school, there's no way that's, it's at the very least supported by staff and teachers, et cetera, the administration. But this was obviously coordinated because it wasn't just one school. And there was clearly some kind of higher level coordination because there was a press conference that went out, or a press release that went out. And, the only reason this wasn't covered is because they picked a news day where there was a lot of other things happening in the Trump administration and even other protests, by the way, that had nothing to do with schools or quote unquote gun violence. So the idea that this was some kind of grassroots, thing or whatever is completely ludicrous. And I just don't understand how teachers and the administrations continue to get away with this stuff. Well, how do they get to just say, hey, parents, we want to take our political beliefs and we want to ram them down your kid's throat, and then we want to use your kids as pawns and put them out in front of cameras and try to, pass our political beliefs off as your children's concerns. I don't understand how they continue to get away with that. I really don't get how there's no consequences for the teachers or for the administration. And, what are parents doing exactly? I can tell you this, there's no way that the majority of parents are happy with this. There's no way that even 50% of the parents who send their kids to school think to themselves, oh, let's see, today my kids are going to go walk around the school. They're going to leave the campus. They're going to be, not escorted or anything like that. They're going to be put in front of news cameras in used for some kind of political ideology. Whether or not you agree with the ideology or not, which isn't even really clear what exactly they're pushing for, but there's no way that the majority of parents think that this is okay. So if it's not okay, what are the parents doing who don't agree with this? Are they pushing back? Are you going to your school boards? Are you going to your administrators and teachers? I got to tell you, if my parents, back in my day, if my parents found out that my teachers were encouraging me to do some kind of political stunt, it wouldn't matter what that political stunt was supporting, they would be absolutely irate. They would be down at the administrator's office. They would be in the principal's waiting room, post haste. I just don't understand how this has become not just acceptable, but it's routine. And, they're trying to pull this wool over your eyes as if it's, something that just kind of happened organically. The kids just were fed up with it, which is complete and total BS. So we were actually contacted by local NBC. Brooke Martell, who's a reporter with NBC7 here in San Diego, reached out. Her email that she sent, which we're going to display here. This is Brooke Martell with the NBC. I'm reaching out following the nationwide walkout that happened today across the United States, protesting gun violence. Schools across San Diego County also participated, including Mount Carmel High School, where students peacefully gathered to protest gun violence in schools. The San Diego County Gunners have a response to this advocacy from students across San Diego County. We did have a response. We had a very official response that we sent, and I thought it was interesting that they referenced Mount Carmel High School. I'm not quite sure why they referenced that school specifically. I think it's because they were one of the few schools that really truly put a big effort into it. I think that it kind of fell flat in a lot of other schools, and Mount Carmel was particularly loud. So this is our official response. Our official response reads as, of course, this is from San Diego County gun owners. SDCGO does not encourage truancy, and we discourage teachers from projecting their personal anti-civil rights views onto children who are there to learn math, reading, and science. Mount Carmel High School barely has 50% of their 11th graders scoring as proficient in math, according to U.S. News, and I provided a link. We encourage parents to demand that California public school teachers focus on basic education. Californians are spending an exorbitant amount of money on education and still only rank 30th compared to other states on proficiency tests, and again, provided a reference. Students cannot afford to take a day off to be manipulated by school staff into a political demonstration with scores that are so bad compared to the money spent. Safety comes from protection, not staff-organized marches. Michael A. Schwartz, San Diego County Gun Owners PAC. We have continued to, we being our organization, our members, other Second Amendment organizations, their members, people who own guns, people that are activists for the Second Amendment across the country, we have continued to give solutions. Hey, why don't we protect our kids? I'll tell you what is not a solution. What is not a solution is for teachers and administrators to take their, project their political beliefs onto their students and use their students as pawns to try to get attention and send them off into a march or a rally or a protest or whatever it is they were attempting to accomplish. The other lesson to learn here is, I think, for everybody, this stuff doesn't work. And I know you can define work a lot of different ways, but what we're trying to do is change public policy so that it is not adversarial towards gun owners, so that it is, in fact, supportive of gun owners and your right to keep and bear arms. So by that definition, do rallies and marches and protests work? No, they do not. They absolutely do not. They don't work on the other side. They don't work on our side. Nothing is different. Nothing has changed. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of, the evidence is the fact that, like I said, if you Google this, you will see that they have been doing this year after year, and, nothing's changed. There's no public policy that has changed, or sprung up as a result of these marches, rallies, and protests. And that's the same on our side. You quite simply don't. That doesn't mean you don't have the First Amendment right to assemble. It doesn't mean you don't have the First Amendment right to air your views. You certainly do. I'm certainly not encouraging the government from standing in the way from your from your right to rally and march or protest. I'm not. That would be an obvious First Amendment violation. I'm certainly not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that you should work smarter, not harder. Continue to file the lawsuits, continue to get the people elected who need to get elected, continue to hold the people who are elected accountable and unelect them if necessary. Continue to change the culture and educate people. That's the stuff that works. These marches, rallies, and protests, they're easy for reporters to cover. They don't change anybody's minds. They don't do anything effective. None of that. I remember there were a couple of times a reporter would contact us and say, hey, there's a rally or a march or whatever, against gun ownership. What do you have to say for yourself as a Second Amendment leader? What do you have to say? There's people marching right now. What's your response? And I'd ask, well, how many people are actually marching? Probably 24 people. And I'd say, okay, well, every month we have 150 people that show up at a meeting, that man tabletops, that teach people how to shoot. Every single month we do something that's far more effective than just taking a walk with some signs. Why aren't you covering that? And the reality is that's what's effective. That's the effective stuff to do. These ridiculous rants that people throw, it just doesn't do anything. And I thought this was interesting. Here's watch this. This comedian absolutely nails it.
I don't know how all these problems aren't getting fixed. Yeah, I understand. There was like an anti-Elon rally today in the city. I don't know how that didn't get solved. I mean, they had a ton of signs. That's your best plan? Fucking cute sign with glitter glue. Everyone driving by is like, what a bunch of fucking idiots, dude. Sometimes I honk just to get their attention. Like, bam, bam. It's helping. We're doing it. We're fixing Palestine. It's your best plan, signs, you fucking retards. It's not going to work.
All right, if you're offended by his language, then make a sign and take a walk, I guess, and protest. But the point here is, he's right. None of this stuff works. Getting a little glitter sign and standing on a corner has never changed anyone's mind ever. It's never gotten anyone ever to do anything different ever, ever, ever. So, all right, Mike, if we don't want us to protest and march and rally, what do you want us to do? We want you to show up. We want you to show up and teach people how to shoot. That's why we have these shooting socials. We want you to recruit people and turn them into donors and members. That's why we have our tabletops. We want you to donate to the organizations that file lawsuits, that organize people, that engage with media and change the culture. There are a lot of things that you can do that take less time and effort, frankly, than protesting and marching and rallying, that are far more effective. Now, I get that when you get frustrated, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Well, we got to rally. We got to get 1 million people to march to Sacramento. But what I'm telling you is there are far better ways to spend your time and your donations than, doing these stupid rallies and protests. Let the other side do these stupid things. But if they use your kids, I think you should show up and raise your concerns with the people in charge. If they're using your kids to rally and march and protest, I think that you should definitely put a stop to that. I think that that's enormously, amazingly inappropriate. Anyway, those are my thoughts. That's where we stand as far as these ridiculous, quote unquote, school gun violence walkouts or whatever they're referring to them as. We make activism easy. So keep following us, donate, get involved, do the things that you need to do. If you did nothing last year, just do one thing this year. If you did one thing last year, do two things this year. Half a day of donating your time every year. Writing a check or two once a year. Everyone can do that. Everyone can do it. Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.